in the last podcast we mentioned that there was comments about white supremacy, and I'm pasting you the snap of the comment. I was gonna say if you wanna read that out, it was in relation to mine and subsequently Wolf's videos on Black Panther, and I was gonna say you can stop and we could respond to bits of it if you want to.
All right. So this comment was posted on what video?
This is on the one Cinema Sins made. The last, I mean, we responded to it 2 days ago.
Oh yeah, the one that's unlisted now. The one he made unlisted.
Yeah,
because it was awful. Yeah. Alrighty, so this is in response to so Turbo Nerdo said this video MauLer made is teetering dangerously to white supremacy, which is in capital letters, white supremacy. Because the main criticism stems to advanced society and African culture are incompatible.
No, my God.
No. It's interesting. I know. Yeah, I know.
How do you get that from all his video?
Advanced society and African culture are incompatible. Well, it's not that they're incompatible. There does not seem to be an immense amount of overlap between those two, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily incompatible.
There's loads of people should post pictures on Discord of modern African culture that's blended with technology. It exists. If you remember, one of the big things I pointed out was how embarrassing the design team were, and they were like, okay, so we're going to have these slick steel towers, and it's like, cool. How do we involve African culture? It's like, well, you know, like straw huts? We'll just shove one into one of the towers. Yeah, that's how that works.
The movie gives the impression that poverty is African culture.
Yeah, that too. There's a lot of stuff.
They should have just, like, you know, the big lake that was next to the city. They should have like added like one of the Haiti garbage heaps right in the middle of it, because that's African culture, man.
It's like you could have things like dress and design and style to reflect, you know, some kind of African culture, but that doesn't mean that people have to be walking around in the streets like this is some kind of a low-class, poverty-stricken marketplace neighborhood. Those aren't the same, but it does look like the designers of the film were like, what when people say, oh, Africa, what gets people to think about Africa? Oh, mass poverty. So let's chuck that in too. But it's very interesting that he thinks that. Maybe he got that from the whole. Maybe he got that from the whole trial by combat thing, which is retarded and has nothing to do with African or European or anything.
Example.
It's like that is a thing that you only find in like a tribal society because of how is completely impractical it is and how self-destructive it is to a society.
I mean, it's in Game of Thrones, so that means it must be advanced, right?
Oh yeah, and that works well for everyone. You play his ridiculous claims up for laughs, but I think it's a dangerous reminder of inherent biases, that society is being equivocated with Western culture, and anything else is considered barbaric.
Well, it kind of is, but, you know.
Well,
I mean, I'm not saying that I agree with the statement. However, whatever is the most advanced culture, would every other culture not be, maybe not barbaric, but less civilized by comparison? Would that not be the logical conclusion there?
Yeah,
well,
I don't.
You could make the argument that the inclusion of technology in the society, because it's a hidden society and they're as inconspicuous as possible, that they're just sort of slamming stuff together. So you have like this amalgamation of rural and urban areas, and you just sort of thrust together. And then you can look at the tribal aspect of the African culture, the dance, the drums, the rhythmic sounds. Like these can be incorporated. It's just that, would you think someone as sophisticated as intelligent would not say, "Hey, you know what? Let's clean up this place. It's kind of dirty."
Yeah, it's like we can make Black Panther suits. You know, we have access to this advanced technology, but we're also simultaneously not intelligent enough to understand that trial by combat to determine who our dictator is self-destructive to the society.
Which, and somehow that hasn't actually had any detrimental effects to them since their inception, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, you're talking about technology versus social. So stuff like that you can get away with, as well as being a comic book. If you ever read any of the Black Panther comics, it is a very tribal system. So it's like, okay.
Well,
But
from
if you're
what I've
talking
heard-
about,
I don't care too much about the comic books, really.
well, if the comics assist the reality of it is like it's irrelevant to the film alone, if you will. But from what I've heard, the comics make more sense than the film does.
right, if you're talking about levels of other things in science, medicine, a hierarchy of people who are on the top, and there is some sort of aristocracy, and then they would have people beneath that, serfdoms, if they're doing a monarchy, stuff like that. I think there is a scene where there are people in villages or huts outside the closed off city. So
It's the
that
fake
would have to
Wakanda.
be, yeah, right. It's like a front, but it's still part of it. So there has to be some sort of amalgamation that slowly and slowly removes that as you get to the higher level tech. And that's fine. It's just that it can't just suddenly be, hey, we have chickens and cows running around on our tower, or we're going to ride on horses even though we have spaceships, stuff like that. It doesn't make sense.
Like, it feels like somebody decided, let's throw tribal and high-tech space age stuff together, and it's like, well, yeah, that's what they did. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm saying that my immersion's broken because that's what it looks like they did.
Regardless of how much sense it makes.
But yeah, just to counter their point anyway, I know about other cultures, or at least I'm aware of other cultures outside of Western that I don't consider to be non-advanced, I suppose. Like, I'm not stupid. Asian culture for any country is completely different from Western, but it doesn't mean it's barbaric compared to.
I mean, look, I'm just saying, Western culture got us to the moon. Eastern gave us anime, and well, one's better.
And
than
what
the
did
other.
Wakanda do?
Actually, Japan just landed.
What are those references?
I think Japan just landed a probe on a meteorite or something today. There was a big.
Well, they still had anime, so
Well,
That's true. Yeah.
yeah, anime's more value than that, of course.
exactly. I mean, come on, Death Note's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's the comment goes on. Seriously, these were the arguments being used when Britain were in the height of their colonial power. Except back then, the argument would have been correct.
As if that's why I'm making this argument. I spend more time with American culture than I do with my own at this point online. Like, I just find this ridiculous. It's like, oh, come on. As if what
God
do I
save
even?
the Queen.
I can't take it seriously, but this person is that convinced that I'm completely brainwashed by my Britishness, and I also am dangerously close to being a white supremacist. Like, come on! I literally just criticized your stupid little film about a superhero. Like, you don't need to extrapolate this.
So what you're saying is make Britain great again?
Yes, and we do it by annexing Wakanda, even though it doesn't exist.
All right.
Which some
Well,
people
I
have
think-
trouble with, by the way. Some people do think Wakanda's real.
I mean, look, I have some German heritage in me. I think we need to make Germany great again. Let's bring it on, guys. Holocaust 2.0. Let's go.
I want to take this Turbo Nerdo guy and ask him if Western civilization or the continent of Africa is more advanced, and watch his head explode. Because he won't want to admit it. Anyway, he says, I expect this attitude from Heart of Darkness, not a YouTube video in 2017.
Heart of Darkness. Are you serious?
It's also 2018, but whatever. It's a weird mistake.
And this attitude is ironic, considering the film being criticized, one which extensively attempts to normalize and represent African culture, and by showing the inherent problems in the society, despite its African culture, highlight that these issues are utterly human.
What?
What?
Didn't follow that one.
Well, Heart of Darkness is a very classic story, and you read in at least high school level. How that relates to, I mean, you're talking about steam engines going down the river, and Jesus, slave trade maybe. Like,
Dude, how this relates to ... You could say that for this entire comment. How this relates to...
His attempts to normalize and represent African culture, and by showing the inherent problems in the society, despite its African culture, highlight that these issues are utterly human. I don't know. Fuck you. Moving on, though, that if given technology, these African tribes can consider us as primitive in the same way that we view current third world nations as primitive. Yeah.
Again, what?
So I guess he's saying that if you give advanced technology to African tribes, they would consider us primitive.
No, they'd use it and then they'd kill themselves. They don't know how it works.
Yeah, they would probably self-destruct.
Yeah, I may as well just keep going.
Like, I'm sorry, but there's a reason why. Okay, no, I probably shouldn't say that.
What, were you going to say that African tribes are barbaric?
Well, I was going to say there's a reason why the best African countries are like only just above like third world, but then I was like, that's probably not the best way to word that.
I mean, there are some places in Africa that generally don't look like they look modern.
There's parts of like South Africa that look modern, but then you go out of those little parts and it's like, oh, it's the rest of Africa now.
Look, is it really a secret that Africa's not doing so hot right now?
Or that any
that opens up arguments about how much of it is Whitey's fault, isn't it? Like that's what.
Oh yeah, because they don't have any.
It's all colonialism's fault, and things were just amazing and wonderful and dandy and magical in Africa until the white people showed up. It's like,
they have no agency. They can't take any responsibility for their own failings, so they have to blame it on white people. So it's like, okay.
I mean, this is the thing. It's a whole discussion. There's a lot of history to go over, but like, why are we talking about all this? You sort of like take a step back and be like, I was just criticizing the design, the ideas of this culture and how it would have lasted. So I was just like, no, this is all because you're British.
These people are desperate to justify trial by combat.
It's so odd.
As a viable, it is very strange. Like that's why when we were watching that guy's review response movie thing, video is the word I'm looking for. When we were watching his video, and I was like, man, I wonder what he's going to say. I'm sure, surely he'll just skip over this part and agree with you, right? Because there's no way you could defend trial by combat as an effective and justifiable political system under dictatorship. Is like, nope, he did. Never mind.
Well, a funny note, by the way, I think it's season 7 or 6 of Game of Thrones. I think it's 6. They outlaw trial by combat because it's too primitive and barbaric.
And it was a kid that outlawed it too.
But it was a white kid.
Still alive and well.
It was a white kid. It was a beautiful Aryan white kid.
Are you saying that Aryan children are smarter than adult black men?
I'm just saying there may have been some
Wolf.
Look, I'm just saying.
Wolf exposed.
I knew it.
Not everything about Hitler was bad.
That's true. Well, that's true. The Audubon.
I heard he's a good painter.
And he did scoliosis checks.
He did like animals.
Yeah, and he did city beautification projects. I mean, not a bad idea.
I wonder if he liked animals as much as Kiro the wolf.
Anyway, if we can just knock out the last bit.
Yeah, he goes on by saying MauLer missing this and criticizing the film as such is only reinforcing the importance of the narrative he is critiquing.
Wow. What narrative would that be, MauLer?
White supremacy.
MauLer missing and critiquing this film as such is only reinforcing the importance of the narrative he is critiquing. I'm confused by that.
I think he's saying that your arguments support your argument.
Well, no, he's sort of painting a picture that there's culture, there's white culture, there's thing. Is it really about white supremacy at this point? Because he went through African culture and then things being primitive and...
Well, he's lumping all of African culture together, for starters. And I didn't say anything because, people, I don't think he was doing it in a malicious way. But there's multiple, African culture is not one thing.
Reinforcing the importance of the narrative from the film, I'm assuming they're trying to say, which is that in the film, Wakanda view themselves as above other societies because they're more advanced, and that's looked at as an issue in the film, which, by the way, like, I'm happy to admit that's a thing in the film. And I think he's saying, I missed that, and it's ironic because that's my issue, that I view Western culture as above and beyond every other culture on Earth, because obviously that's this person's take on my video for some fucking reason.
And first off, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with saying first world countries are not culturally better than third world countries?
It's offensive.
Is that
Because
is
it's
that
racist.
Is that incorrect?
Well, I mean, if
I
there's a
would
culture where you
generally
like chop
argue that
things
they are.
off and fight each other to the death to earn the
Well,
right to...
we're about to get into that with the end of his comment.
Oh.
So let's tackle that. That culture does not make one better or worse. That spiritual beliefs are independent of the need to build bridges as a society. That no group is superior or inferior to another group.
Oh boy.
A message that has clearly gone our whoosh over Mahler's head.
Yeah, no, that's
So-
just simply not true.
Yeah,
Some
so-
groups are superior or inferior to other
some
groups.
cultures are shit. And I would not shed a tear if some cultures in the world disappeared.
Like, what if there's a culture, like, hypothetically, there's a culture where it's just tradition once every week to eat a bowl of shit? That's just not superior or inferior. That's just their culture. Leave them alone.